guys, welcome to another video. It's been a little while, the busy school period is finally over and summer vacation has started. So I'm planning to spend my free time this summer improving my arts, and I'm gonna start with values. So values are obviously very important when it comes to making arts. They make it so that an illustration is just clear and readable even if you look at it for only a short time. So for those of you who might not know what values exactly are, they're not the same as colors. It's when you take an image or photo or anything and convert it to black and white, and then the grayscale. So the blacks and the whites and contrast between those. So for the first exercise, I decided to just dive right in with some black and white studies with acrylic paints. I've had this board laying around for forever, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. But that's obviously never gonna happen, so I decided today is the day. I've never really done anything like this before, so first of all, my plan is to just make thumbnails in black and white of some of the photos that I took and really just look at the values. I converted the photos to black and white so I wouldn't have to figure out the values myself, because I figured let's start a little simple at least. It ended up not being that simple, but we'll get into that later. So because this was basically my first time, I decided to not put my expectations too high, and that's good because especially the first couple ones they were quite rough. I wasn't really know what I'm doing, and I don't really work with acrylic paints ever. And on top of that, they were very small and my brushes were very big, but that's not an excuse. So I just kept going. So like I mentioned before, for the references, I decided to use some of the pictures that I've taken. I'll be sure to put them on the screen as I'm working on each. I made sure that they had some sort of nice composition and a good range of values so that I would actually do anything. So I had taped around the edges with some ugly tape that I never used and didn't feel bad about wasting. I wasn't wasting it, but just like using it once. But using tape means that at some point you get to peel it all off, and oh, how satisfying. It never gets old. It actually worked better than I had expected. Like, they didn't bleed, and I think part of that is the first tip of the video. Use just like a card, like a credit card or whatever, to really press it down firmly so that it's pressed down firmly, yes. So these little painting studies, I think they're definitely a good start, but it's really hard to get like crisp lines and clear planes. That's also because I kept mixing paints and I should have just like picked a set range of values. So I decided let's do it digitally as well, and then it's easier to get the opaqueness in, and I'm also more comfortable with digital art, so we're gonna simple it down a little bit. So I did pretty much the same thing, just in a digital program. One thing, however, was I decided to pick black, white, and then 3 grayscale tones in between, and I would not use any more than those. This way the images would be clearer, which is something I struggle to do with the traditional ones. I spent about 5 minutes on every study, not having to mix paints and like swap paint brushes, as well as things being 100% opaque and having the lasso tool. It definitely made the process quicker, but it also helped that I had already drawn them and already was familiar with the references. So next up, maybe I should have done this before, but I was doing a little bit of research. I watched some videos on YouTube. I started with this Marco Bucci video about merging shapes. If you for some reason don't know Marco Bucci, I would highly recommend this channel if you want to improve your art. He is really great beginner and also intermediate like tutorials and tips, and it's always very insightful. I'll be sure to link everything I mentioned in the video description. So from those tutorials, I made sure to take some notes of the important parts of the video. I really want to just write more in my sketchbook, just notes and everything, because that can be very helpful. And a sketchbook is just a place to learn, so why not write more, right? So keeping Marco Bucci's video about merging shapes in mind, I decided to start on a bit of a bigger drawing. For my reference, I chose this photo I took in Yokohama back in January. I started with just the big layout and tried figuring out the perspective, and then kind of just winged it. I did start with the big shapes, obviously, and getting the composition down. It was a little bit hard because the perspective was, I think it was 2-point perspective, so that's not too bad, but it was just, this image was definitely maybe too hard to start with, but I did learn a lot, and I was just trying to merge big groups of shapes together and working from big to small and keeping the overall value in mind. And I think it turned out alright. After a small hour, the painting was done. It wasn't great, like I said, but it was definitely great practice because I've never really done anything like this before. And we'll just keep on going. And that's the end of day 1. So day 2, I started with more research. I mostly watched some of Proco videos. I'm sure you know him. Please say you do. And I just picked some videos I found that were telling something about values. So Proco made this site where you can just insert an image and then just choose how many values you want and like choose the threshold of each value, and that way it's really easy to just accurately see how the values in an image are like separated. And I used this afterwards to like check if I did all right. So I first picked the original image and converted it to black and white into 2 or 3 values, and then took my drawing and compared it. And you can see that especially in this area and this area, it would have been better if I just made it darker and grouped more together. And it also brings me to the fact that I used 5 values, which is actually, it was too much to start with, so it would have been better to start with 3. But I realized that only after learning what Notan studies are, and so that's what I did next. So Notan studies are basically when you grab an image or a drawing or a painting or anything and convert it to 2 values, so light and dark. Either something is dark or something is light. And I collected some master paintings that I really like, and I just made a reference board and then just like made little thumbnails with dark and light studies. So I was a little bit scared of doing this because I thought it was going to be really hard because you only had 2 values, but it was honestly not that hard. I honestly really enjoyed it because it was kind of puzzle solving, because you had this image and it was just in color and you just had to decide for yourself, okay, which parts are dark and which parts are light parts. And something Proco also mentioned is that you really need to keep the entire image in mind. When you paint something or when you work on a drawing, you can really get caught up in like a small part of the illustration. And in that small part, you really want to get like dark darks and light lights. But then when you zoom out, it's just like taken out of the full image and it's just not right. So you really need to just like keep the entire painting and then focus on which is dark and which is light. With the Notan studies, they were also really, really quick. I don't know why I had expected that they would take a lot of time, but they really didn't. They were just small, like black and white studies. I wanted to like try my own variation of the Notan studies and went to my digital program again, inserted the photos, and then just like drew right on top of it with black and white. That didn't really work at first because, newsflash, if you draw on top of something opaque, it's not there anymore. So eventually I found a way around that to just like choose light or dark and then paint in the dark or light areas and then just like fill the rest of it like a layer underneath the value that I hadn't had yet. But I don't think this actually did much. It was, however, another good way to compare my previous studies and the ones with only 2 values. Especially for the photos that I kind of struggled with, the ones with more details and just more values overall, especially this one in the bakery. So I once again went to the Proco site where you can check the values and check the values for that one, and then checked how well I did with the first digital study. Okay, I don't want to be dramatic, but I feel like the things I've learned are already like, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but like changing the way I draw, because I redrew this Ivana poster, and as you can see, it's a lot of blacks, right? And normally when I draw, I just like when I sketch with pencil, it's only lines. But the things that stuck the most for me for the videos I watched were, one, Marco Bucci's video where he was merging shapes together, so like the background and the hair are sort of one shape here, because here it's also very dark. Another one was the Notan Studies, and something Proco said which was like to just like think of the values and not just of the lines and shapes. So here I like did the hair, it doesn't really make sense, but the hair is just like a shape, right? And here it's also just like a shape, and you have lights and darks, whether it's still both the hair, but this part is dark, so you just shade that. This looks better. You just shade that a lot better. And I don't know, I think I learned a lot, even though it's only day 3. Also, if you're wondering why she doesn't have a mouth, I don't know, ask the official artist. day 3 or 4, I honestly already lost count, but I'm following another of Proko's videos about value keys and making different thumbnails. So I did this one, markers, this is the reference, and next up I'm gonna use this reference and then do it with pencil. Today I followed yet another one of Proko's videos. This time it was about finding different value keys and compositions within a photo. This is all about choosing where to put emphasis using value and trying out different value distributions. Something that I've learned from all these videos is that as an artist, you are not portraying the world exactly as you see it. I don't do hyperrealism, I don't do realism. It's about like capturing the world around you, making choices as an artist and choosing how you want to portray that. So you have to make choices in dark and light, where to push contrast, which shapes merge together, which areas get the focal points. You have large, medium and small shapes, and there's always like a balance and the flow between everything. This video and this exercise also really helped me figure out what a low-key drawing is or a low-key image, or high key and mid key, so I made sure to write those down as well. The value tool on the website, on Proko's website, was also very helpful for this part. So I used markers for the first reference, and then for the second reference I decided to use pencil, also to improve my ability to control the pressure and thus opacity of my graphite strokes. I did another little more complicated photo in marker as well. And also this pear that I don't know what it is about it, but I think it's really neat. I just like the textures. And also this little value key where I go from dark to light, and I should have started with that, but better late than never. On day 3, I made even more 3 value thumbnails from artists that I just really like and that I think have really good values. Some of these are artists that I follow on Instagram, like Loish or Greta Lusky. There's also artists that are, I don't know, long dead, like J.C. Leindecker or Micha. These last two are artists that you will definitely see more of in this video because I think they are truly just masters when it comes to making art. I found that the 3 value studies were actually not particularly harder or easier to do than the 2 value ones because there were more options, but it was also easier because you didn't have to simplify as much. So I think it's different than 2 values, but still I think both are good. I've got yet a couple more like 3 value studies here of artists that I really like, and I don't know what it is, but I just really like, I just enjoy doing this. Just simplifying is so much fun. I also definitely think that 3 values compared to 2 values is just more effective. So I'm gonna do it again, but I have this toned paper that I'm gonna be using. So I have a white pencil and a 9B pencil. And then I've got a couple art books here. I've got one from Micha, one from Ishidasi, one from Posca de Mizu, and then one from Leindecker that I think have really, really great, just like compositions and values. Let's go. There, it was really different to work with the toned paper because you really have to, instead of just like adding darkness, you just gotta add light, which is like kind of a mind switch. I don't know. Other than that, I'm actually honestly, my wrist, like I got this white pencil and this 9B pencil and I had to press down so hard, but I think we got there. One thing that I think is really interesting is that if you look at J.C. Leindecker, you can see that it uses a lot of white, like these 5, 6 are from him. And then the Mizu Posca is very fragmented, I feel like. Micha is very framing, which is obviously one of the things he's known for, so there's always like a frame of some sorts around everything. And then Ishida Suya, I feel like he really has bold shapes, like he often has like a very saturated background and that's just like one mid-tone or one light tone, and then really dark darks and really light lights, and that's what I really like. Especially this one is really cool. Day 4 started with a video from Jade Designs about 3 value studies. I'd never heard of this person before, but the video was very, very insightful in terms of lights and shadows, so I made sure to take my notes here and there. So they talked about an exercise to take a photo, simplifying it by retracing it to the most basic shapes and then redrawing it first in the lines, then in black and white like Notan Studies, and then add in the halftones. So these halftones are a mid value, but they are either in the shadows or in the lights. So when you take a picture, you cannot have the exposure both in the light areas and in the dark areas. It's either one, and in art it's the same. So I gathered some references with clear lights and darks, but I honestly struggled a little with identifying whether the details were in the lights or in the darks. But nonetheless, I do think this was a really great exercise for capturing bigger scenes as well as understanding light and shadow, the basics of it. So I made about 5 quick drawings. I'm not sure I captured them well or really followed up on the assignments, but at least I got a couple more background drawings under my belt, which was definitely due. And I also think breaking in a fast scene, like a big background drawing in this way, is really effective because it really makes it clear how the image is distributed in lights and darks, and that really helps to just make it more clear. I think part of the problem that I couldn't really figure out that well where the lights and where the shadow areas were, at least where the exposure was focused upon, was also partly because the references I picked didn't really have clear cast shadows. Maybe they were a little overcast, which means that the shadows aren't that clear. But I tried my best, and I think this exercise really made it easy to step into big background drawings, which can be incredibly intimidating, and I almost never do them because of it. But this way, it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to look good. You don't have to show it to everyone, even if I will. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that it was a great practice. This last day I'm going to make 2 more drawings, both using 5 values, taking everything I've learned this past week. So here's the reference for the first drawing. Just like yesterday, I'm starting with the lines, breaking the image down into simple shapes. I'm not very experienced when it comes to drawing backgrounds, so after drawing the lines from the reference, I put the image over the drawing and I had to readjust and redraw a couple lines here and there. This way I'm starting with a strong foundation and I'm not doomed from the start. The focus for this painting is on the values, not my ability to accurately get a composition down in lines. So I don't think it's cheating for now. Maybe next week I'll tackle that. So I got my 5 values and started with a mid value in the background. From here I added both the darkest and the lightest values, slowly nuancing all the different values and putting them down after analyzing the reference. Once most of the basic shapes were down, I started refining the shapes. I made sure that there was enough contrast where different parts overlapped. Sometimes this meant boosting the contrast. For example, I darkened the bushes behind the light pillars on the left, and sometimes it meant merging areas together like on the right. I made sure to regularly look at my viewfinder and make sure that the whole image was staying legible. After having most of the shapes down and the values, it was just adding details here and there, making sure that I actually followed the shape that they represented. I made sure to not use too many soft edges yet because that wasn't the focus for this exercise. I only used a couple here and there and like a gradient in the sky, but I think that's about it. This drawing took about half an hour, which I think is really not bad. Here it is. This is pretty much the last drawing of this challenge. There's one more. So the last drawing of this video is a redraw of the Yokohama drawing that I made in the beginning of the video, this one, to see if I had improved anything at all and to compare them at the end. I do have to mention, however, that at this point I got so sick of doing these black and white studies and I just wanted to be done, so it was certainly a little bit rushed. Nonetheless, I applied the same process as the drawing earlier today. I started with a sketch in lines, checked to see if the perspective and proportions were right. They were not. And first added a midtone in the background, followed by the darks, followed by the lights. Then in the light areas I added the second lightest value, and in the dark areas I added the second darkest value as the halftones. The midtone I honestly just added here and there where I thought it looked good, yes. So once again, once all the basic values were done, it was just refining everything, making sure that it was legible without the lines too. And even though I spent nearly half as much time on this one as the first Yokohama drawing, comparing them side by side, you can definitely see that the values are clearer, making the whole image more legible.
The fact that the perspective is right certainly helps a lot as well, but I hope that you can also see some of the difference. I feel like I've definitely learned a lot this week. And that brings me to... So I've definitely drawn quite a lot this past week, and I've definitely learned a lot as well. The beginning with the acrylics was a little rough because yes, I wasn't as experienced when it came to using values, but also because I'm not a painter and I don't know paint that well, so it wasn't really convenient to combine those two. Throughout the week, I've really done many studies and exercises, most of them following Procus videos, which were very helpful for bringing some structure in my exercises, but there were other YouTubers who were also very helpful. Once again, I'll be sure to have all of the videos I've watched as well as other resources down in the description. One thing that I really couldn't get enough of was just these 2 or 3 value Notan Studies. Just these little thumbnails, something about seeing them on the page it really tickles my fancy. If you want to improve your value as well, I hope this video was at least a little bit insightful. I am no expert and I didn't tackle this the best way I could, but I'll keep on doing my best and improving in both my art and my videos. As might have been apparent, I didn't have much of a plan going into this video or this week of studying, but I'm definitely going to continue tackling the fundamentals this summer while I have the time. I'm really looking forward to improving my art and just drawing lots and lots. I really hope that you enjoyed this video as well and you got something out of it. If you did, it would really make my day if you could this video a like or a comment even. And if you would like to follow me on this improvement journey, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Mwah. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye and happy sketching.